You see everything. That is not a boast. It is a technical description of your condition. Right now, in this single instant, you are watching a merchant in Dale lie to his wife about the weight of a grain shipment. You are watching a Rohirrim scout misread a trail in the Vold and turn his horse the wrong direction. You are watching 7 separate assassination plots against 7 separate lords. And you have already calculated that 6 of them will fail by morning, and the 7th will fail by noon. You see the misty mountains from the roots of their foundations to the ice at their crowns. You see the harbor mouth at Pelargir, the killing fields outside Osgiliath, the trembling of a sentry on the walls of Minas Tirith, who has been awake for 31 hours and whose legs are beginning to lie to him. You hold 17 threads of attention simultaneously, the way a hand holds water, and not a drop escapes. Except one. There is a gap, a small, warm absence moving through the northwest, roughly the size of a halfling, traveling southeast. You have felt it before. You know exactly what it is. The ring is moving again. You were forged before the mountains. You poured your will into that band of gold in the fires below you, pressed your essence into the metal like a signature into hot wax, and for centuries it sat on your finger and the world bent toward you. Then a river took it. A fish creature found it in the mud. A cave held it for 478 years. A burglar lifted it from a creature's pocket in the dark. A dragon's mountain, a birthday party, a wizard, a road. You have run the acquisition sequence so many times, the math has developed a kind of texture, like a scar you keep pressing with your thumb. None of it makes strategic sense. No rational actor does this with power. You dispatch the 9. You tighten the net. You tell yourself this time the logic holds. Your 9 riders sweep west. You track them through your gaze. 9 simultaneous feeds moving like black teeth across the map, and they find the name, Baggins. The trail goes cold at a river crossing called the Bruinen. You feel the Nazgul swept away by the current, undone by one elf with a dramatic instinct and a fast horse, and they spend 3 weeks reconstituting while somewhere in the world, a fellowship assembles and begins to move. 3 weeks is nothing to a being who watched the First Age burn. 3 weeks is, it turns out, exactly the head start that changes everything. Your gaze sweeps the Shire again and again, and each time it slides off like water off sealed stone. There is no power there. There is no ambition, no hunger, no trembling toward greatness. The residents grow things and eat them and argue about fences. You have swept your attention over that green, irrelevant country 100 times across the ages and found nothing worth watching. You are the most sophisticated surveillance apparatus in the history of the world, and your blind spot is shaped exactly like contentment. The Fellowship of 9 moves south and then east, a perfect, infuriating mirror of your own 9, and you track them in fragments. Moria swallows them for a week. Lothlorien occludes you entirely, the lady there actively jamming your signal, and you experience something you have not felt since the First Age. The specific humiliation of being blocked by a forest. When they emerge at the River Anduin, the ring flickers back into your perception like a candle guttering in wind, and then cuts out again. You make the error that you will not understand was an error until it is too late. There is a man in the Fellowship, a son of a steward, ambition moving through him like a current through water, and you understand him completely. You know the shape of his hunger. You push at him, apply pressure at the edges, and you can feel him bending toward you across the miles, reaching for the ring with the full weight of his love for his city and his terror of its fall. You break him open like a book and read him cover to cover, and while you are reading him, the ring-bearer slips east across the Anduin, alone. 2 figures now, moving into the Brown Lands. The absence, smaller than ever, heading directly toward Mordor on foot. You tell yourself this is manageable. You are Sauron. You hold 17 threads at once. The war turns your gaze west. Minas Tirith stands behind its white walls, and you pour your full military weight against it. The siege engines rolling across Pelennor like slow thunder. The Witch King at the vanguard. And in the Orthanc stone, a young man looks into the stone with frightened eyes, and you reach into him and show him everything. The fleet at Pelargir, 40 black-sailed ships carrying your soldiers north. The arithmetic of doom. The sheer, cold geometry of a city that cannot survive what is coming. He flinches in the stone's light, and you read the fear off him like heat off asphalt, and you think, broken. You think, done. The fleet arrives. The sails are black. And then the dead walk off the ships, soldiers of a king 3,000 years buried, immune to blades and fear and everything your orcs know how to use, and the siege breaks in under 6 hours. You showed that young man his doom, and he showed you a deception so simple it required only that you believe what you saw. He was afraid. You were correct. You just didn't ask what the fear was for. The Witch King gone, the greatest of your 9 destroyed by a woman and a hobbit in a single engagement. The White City still burning, but not fallen. Your gaze swings back east in something that, in a lesser being, might be called vertigo. And there at the base of Mount Doom, the 2 small figures are climbing. You still have the creature. That was always the safeguard you were certain of. Gollum, who carried the ring for 478 years, who wants it with a hunger that has hollowed him to the bone, who has guided the ring-bearer through Mordor because he cannot help moving toward the thing he loves. You knew him. You studied the shape of his desire the way you study enemy troop formations, and it was absolute, consuming, irresistible. He would never let the ring go. You were right. The ring-bearer stands at the edge of the crack of doom, and you push every fraction of your remaining will through the stone and the fire toward that single, small mind. You feel him buckle. You feel him reach for the ring with his hand. He puts it on, and for the first time in months, the absence becomes a presence, a signal, a location, and you can see him. You send the Nazgul. You reach out to claim him across the miles of fire and shadow, and you are seconds away. Gollum takes it. He bites it off the finger. He takes it the way he always took everything, with his whole ruined body and his whole centuries-long need, and he steps backward off the edge with it clutched to his chest, because having it for 1 more second is worth anything, is worth everything, is worth the fire below. He was the variable you were certain of. His desire was absolute. You were right about all of it. And the desire that you correctly mapped, that you knew with perfect confidence, is the mechanism of your ending. The ring hits the fire. Everything goes at once. Not in sequence. The tower does not explode so much as it forgets to remain solid. The stone coming apart without drama, sliding downward like a thing that was always slightly conditional. Your armies at the Black Gate stop mid-motion, the intelligence draining out of them. 10,000 orcs blinking in the sudden gray light with no idea what they were doing or why. The 17 threads of your attention, every feed, every palantir, every shadow council, all of it pulling toward a single point that no longer exists, collapsing inward like a fire when you stop feeding it. You are becoming noise where there was signal. In the fraction of a second before coherence ends, your attention is singular for the first time in millennia. One thought, perfectly clear. You think about the Shire. You think about how many times your gaze swept over it and found nothing. You think about the halfling who carried your spine across 300 miles of hostile country and stood at the edge of your fire, and for 1 moment wanted it, and in that wanting declared himself to you, and you reached out to claim him, and he was saved by the one being whose wanting was older and deeper and more total than yours. You were not defeated by virtue. You were defeated by a mirror. Gollum wanted the ring exactly the way you wanted the ring, and that wanting walked it into the fire, and the fire was yours, and it was enough. the eye closes, not violently. The way a room goes dark when the last person leaves and someone, finally, turns off the light. Somewhere in the Shire, a hobbit plants a garden. Every system built on control creates the one blind spot it cannot afford. The thing it never thought to watch for, because it never believed that thing could matter. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.